So Johnny Walker, man, the MMA gods are fickle, aren't they? So think about it. Just a little while ago, as a matter of fact, it was right before Jon Jones fought Dominic Reyes. Johnny Walker was actually being talked about as a potential title contender. Like, people were actually talking about that man getting a shot at the belt, right? And it wasn't just like random MMA people. It wasn't some question that was asked at the press conference that Dana White had to answer. Like, Jon Jones was actually addressing it. Jon Jones was going on TV and on interviews, and he was actually addressing it. I remember him saying, oh, Johnny Walker looks pretty good, but if I was fighting those types of guys, I would look just as dynamic and good as he does. I want to see what happens when he gets a few names on his resume. You know, and he was right, because he only had, like, think about it. Johnny Walker only had like 3 fights in the UFC, and we had seen him for a total of like 4 minutes or something crazy like that, right? I mean, he was getting these spectacular first round finishes. But that's all it takes. That's all it takes for some people to just be so amazed and so dazzled that all of a sudden they're immediately talking about title shot. I mean, think about that. We hadn't even seen him in the ring, in the octagon, for a total of 1 full 5-minute round throughout the accumulation of his career. And right away, people were talking title shot against a man who's arguably the greatest of all time. And for sure the greatest ever at 205 in Jon Jones. All right, so it's funny. Then all of a sudden he comes out there, gets smoked in the first round by Corey Anderson. Immediately dashes hopes of a title shot. Then he comes back just recently and he gets this fight against Nikita Krylov. Butchering his name there a bit. And loses again. This one was a decision, but I mean, he lost decisively, 30-27 for sure. In my opinion, got wrestled to death. And lost decisively, you know. So it's interesting, right? So where does he go from here? So is this the end of him? Is that it? Is he just going to be a flash in the pan? Came over, got a few wins, flying knee knockout, and all of a sudden that's it? It's over with? Now the possibility for that exists, right? He wouldn't be the first, and he wouldn't be the last for that to have happened to, right? There's a lot of guys throughout boxing and MMA that have just come and gone, looked very promising, disappeared, went nowhere, for a variety of reasons, right? But the jury's still out with Johnny Walker. Jury's still out with him, right? And I'll tell you why. Number one, he's young. Guy's only 27 years old, right? So when you're that young, he can absolutely still turn around and make it. Number two, he's got all of the physical tools, right? The strength, the speed, the power, the athleticism. He's got everything physically that it takes to win at the highest level. Right, he's big for the weight class. Right, he's a big guy. He went and he just for this last training camp, he went and he worked with Firas Zahabi. Now, obviously, it didn't look that good in this fight. Right, he went out there and he got smoked. But we know how good Firas Zahabi is as a coach. So the fact that he actually made a change in his life, I don't know if he was living in Brazil before then or what. I know that's where he's originally from, but I know he wasn't in Canada, and he said, you know what, I'm moving up there and I'm going to make this happen. I'm training with Firas because that's how much dedication he has. That's how much he's putting forth in his career to show that he wants to win. So that's a great sign, right? So it's interesting. You know, we'll have to see, but he has everything that it takes to make it so far, and he looks like he's making some good decisions. And I'll tell you what I don't like. I know, you look at what happened in that fight with Corey Anderson. He just got caught with a right hand. After he got caught with that first right hand, it was pretty much all over, right? He beat him up a little bit, knocked him around the ring, knocked him down and everything before he eventually got the stoppage. But ultimately, if you look back at that fight and you watch it, that first overhand right that Corey Anderson caught him with, it was over from right there, okay? And he just caught him standing up. He didn't set it up or anything. He was like just standing there, and he just came in and caught him with it. Bang! So it was like he didn't even see it coming, fresh. And even though Johnny Walker didn't get stopped in this fight, he got caught with that same punch a few times. And I even think he got caught with a right uppercut once or twice as well. So I'm a little concerned about the fact that you're an orthodox fighter, number one, right? Orthodox meaning an orthodox stance, standing in the right-handed stance. He's a right-handed fighter. This far along in your career, and you just get caught with straight right hands that have no setup, or just a 1-2 setup. Especially early in the fight when you're supposed to be fresh. No damage. Like, that's not a good sign. He's supposed to see those coming. That's number one. Gets caught with it 2 fights in a row. Thought he would have cleared that up after the first one. And then his wrestling defense, that didn't look good at all. He got wrestled to death in that last fight. And if you want to compete at the highest level at 205, you absolutely have to be able to wrestle. Right? And that's not just talking about the champ, but that's just period. You have to be able to wrestle to get that done. So he's absolutely not ready yet. I mean, the guy's probably got dropped down to like a top 15 at this point, which is legit. I mean, with those 2 losses in a row, the way we knock out and then dominated like that, it's legitimate that you're going to see a drastic drop-off from whatever your rankings are. But, he may still put it together. You know what I mean? He may come through with it. He may end up showing that he's got what it takes. We'll have to see. I'll be really interested to see his next fight. Right, coming down, where is he mentally? What has he been able to work with as far as Firas Zahabi in the meantime to be able to patch up any holes in his game? I know he came out afterwards on social media. Johnny Walker came out afterwards on social media and he's like, oh, thanks so much, coach, for being there. I know we didn't have a long time to work together. I still got a lot of holes in my game. We'll see what the future holds. So that's good. I mean, at least he recognizes it, right? But recognizing it and being able to do something about it are 2 different things. So definitely looking forward to it. Definitely going to have to wait and see. But I think the moral to this story is a couple things. One, you can't judge a guy too early. You need to see him against quality competition before you can really see what he has to be able to compete at the highest levels, right? That'd be number one. And number 2 would be people are fickle, right? The media is fickle. 1 second you're a hero, next second you're a zero. That's it, just that quick. People are talking about you getting a shot at the belt, and then worst thing possible, nobody's talking about you. Crickets. That's the worst thing possible, right? If you're a fighter, if you're doing anything out there, you want people to talk good about you, people talk bad about you, at least people are talking about you. But when nobody's talking about you at all, that's when you run the risk of having become irrelevant. So, fear that if you're in this profession. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. Like I said, I'm excited. Looking forward to what Johnny Walker has in the future. Have to wait and see.